Welcome to episode 21 of the Dare to Dream podcast. So excited to be here for another week. Let's get it started.
So excited to be here. It's honestly a privilege and a blessing just to get to do this every single week. It brings me so much joy, and it's something I look forward to all week.
Oh, man. Likewise. I mean, we see each other on a daily basis, but this is just on another level of enjoyment for the both of us. So today we are going to be talking about a book and an author who's really just had a significant impact in both of our lives. And honestly, it just has been really a catalyst that sent us on this journey of spiritual growth and discovery and finding joy within ourselves and making life kind of just a manifestation of that inner joy and peace and just feeling good within and making the world without an example and representation of that. So why don't you start us off here, champ?
So the author is Michael Singer, and I think we're going to probably touch on two of his books. And honestly, both of these books, in my opinion, should be required reading for all of humanity. They're that powerful. And so I think we'll start with the Surrender Experiment.
Mm-hmm.
So this was actually a book that Vinny showed me. We were in Greece, actually.
Really?
It was our senior trip after college, and I'm always curious to see what books people bring on trips, because some people bring a book just because it's easy to travel with. Some people bring a book because they can't put it down. And I remember you read The Untethered Soul, and then I read it while we were on the trip, and then our buddy Ron even started reading it. It was that good. And so Michael Singer is, I don't even know how to describe this man. He has done so many incredible things throughout his life. From deciding, so he was studying to become an economist. He was doing his master's in economics in Florida. And about 3/4 of the way through his degree, he just decided that he wanted to start doing meditation and yoga all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so he actually moved into the woods and lived out of his van and essentially stopped going to his economics classes because he just felt called to seclude himself in the forest and try and get rid of. He talks about we all have this little voice in our head,
Mm-hmm.
the inner roommate, the inner critic. And that's really what the beginning of The Untethered Soul is about, is just this incessant chatter
Mm-hmm.
of this little voice that isn't really you. It's just constantly judging and criticizing and commenting on everything that's going on in your life. And it just won't shut up.
Yeah.
And so the Surrender Experiment is just his life journey and this kind of game he played of finding a way to shut up the little voice in his head and essentially do the opposite of what it was freaking out about. And so it's called the Surrender Experiment because he decided to just, whenever the force of life or the flow of life would present an opportunity in front of him, normally the little voice would be like, oh, you can't do that. What's going to happen next? You don't know anything about this.
Mm-hmm.
And he would just ignore that voice and then just say yes to it. And he just kept saying yes and yes and yes. And he went from he passed his final exams for getting his master's in economics by randomly opening his textbook to 3 different pages. And the essay question was pick 3 of 6 questions, and they just happened to be the pages he turned to. That was kind of where he started being okay, whoa. If I just surrender, magic is happening.
Mm-hmm.
He goes from doing that, moving into the woods, ends up attracting people to move into the woods with him. He wanted to live alone, but people just kept coming in. He builds over an 800-acre spiritual community by the end of it, a temple, all of this. Ends up starting a multi-billion-dollar company from the woods by himself. His life is just unbelievable, and he keeps coming back to this game he was playing with life. So whenever a crazy opportunity would present itself to him, he would just surrender and say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of where I want to take this first, is just exploring this concept of surrender, this surrender experiment.
Yep.
And how we can integrate that into our own lives without going too far off the deep end and just saying yes to everyone else's wants and needs and not really caring for ourselves.
For sure. Yeah, it's a fascinating balance. Trying to, feel like you are in control of your own life while also being open to everything that life presents to you. And what I really like about the book, so he realizes that one day he's like, wait, there's this voice in my head that will not shut up. And it's crazy. I've been thinking about it, I mean, a lot lately, but we've had it since they were born. It's just like if you, and this is the whole concept of the untethered soul, is, so I get, it might be confusing going back and forth. So
Which
first book,
that's his other book.
right? Yeah, exactly. So the first book was first book's the Untethered Soul.
I'm actually not sure which one came first.
I think it is.
I think so.
But yeah, and then the second one is the Surrender Experiment. Similar theme, so we might just be jumping back between them. But so he just one day realizes that this voice in his head will not stop just chattering, and it's incessant. And he's like, I have to do something to make this thing quiet down. And so so that's why he goes to the woods and wants to completely immerse himself in just meditation and just, quieting that voice by any means possible. And the thing I really like about it, and what we're both just interested in at this point of our lives, is not that like you have to escape from life to find some sort of inner peace or meaning or just silence. It's how can we use these things to exist in modern society, but never let the constant barrage of things that make our modern day just so many moving parts, how do we not let that just infiltrate our being and really bring us down? Because if we let everything that comes in weigh us down, we have nothing else to give, and our energy is completely depleted. So what I love about the Surrender Experiment, it's a way to exist in the modern world and really take control of your life, and nothing that happens to you can affect you once you find that inner peace and that surrender. So yeah, the Surrender Experiment was an awesome book. So you're back to your question of how do you really surrender to life without just being a complete yes man who says yes to everything and like has no kind of personal fortitude, I guess.
Yeah, like how do you surrender to the flow of life so that you're flowing downstream, like things are going your way,
mm-hmm.
but you're still making sure that you're moving in a direction you want to be moving in,
right.
And you don't let everyone else rule your life.
Mm-hmm.
So right, you're just like, because you don't want to get to the point where you're just living solely for other people's wants and needs.
Exactly.
Then you just don't have enough energy to give.
And you lose your sense of you. Like there's a difference between, I think this is like what he exemplifies, is just being so content in who you are and feeling so strongly about who you are that you are able to surrender to any experience and say, yes, I am like so content and happy and at peace with who I am that I could give myself, who is already established, fully to this new experience and be open to it and not live in fear that it's gonna break me or change me. Well, I mean, not change you, but kind of take over your identity, I guess. So, I mean, what comes to mind when thinking about that is just, at first, figuring out kind of who you are and doing the inner work to realize that no matter what happens, I have me to return to. Like I have this well of energy and being inside of me that no matter what happens, I know what that is. At least I have a feeling of what that is. And I think it does come down to a feeling, like when exposed to a new experience, you'll get a feeling inside of you like, is this right with who I am? And I think it's different for sure than just being like, is this scary? Because like fear and feeling that a new experience is gonna be scary is different than being like, this is not what I want to become. Like this is not who I actually want to be and how I see myself growing. So I think that's maybe a good place to start, is to kind of know what your values are, but finding a way to be open enough that you can assess any new experience or situation and give yourself fully to that experience.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there of having done the personal work to have that inner fortitude and to be strong enough to know that whatever happens, you're going to be okay with.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually has a brilliant quote in here. He says, everything will be okay as soon as you're okay with everything.
Yep.
And just surrendering to the flow of life. But it also brings up another interesting perspective of, I don't personally believe that you can just lay back and say, all right, life, figure it out for me.
Right.
And he mentions it a little bit in the book, but I know a lot of the other intellectuals that we like to listen to are really big on, it's a combination. It's like if you were to put it in terms of a formula, it would be surrender plus action.
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely have to be doing something. You have to be trying something, putting yourself out there, saying yes to opportunities,
Yep.
and also surrendering. That's like the magic formula. So you can't just sit there and wait for life to happen. You got to put yourself out there.
Exactly. And I think he talks about it a lot in the Untethered Soul. Basically everything that we do that we, the negativity in our lives, everything kind of comes back to fear. So we try to make up, we strive for these things that kind of society deems as important because we fear if we don't get those things, then by society's standards, we aren't living up to the value that society's kind of created. And so even just when you want to present yourself in the best way possible, that when you kind of break it down, that's because we're scared of what other people will think if we're not held up to that standard, if we're not on the same level that everybody else is playing at. And so I think it's finding the difference between surrendering and knowing that basically it's dropping the guard of fear. When you realize that it's okay to feel fear, it's okay to feel these emotions inside, that's what makes us human. But then I love how he always just brings up it's the sport of the day to feel fear about something, but then surrender to it and realize that you're gonna be okay. No matter what happens, you're gonna be okay. Surrender to the experience, and if you do feel fear, it's good, but kind of question where that's really coming from. Is it because you? Is it fear based on what the world is placing on you? Is it fear that you're not going to look a certain way in other people's eyes, or is it a fear of something deeper, you're going to disappoint people or you're going to disappoint yourself? And then to kind of dial it down to realize where the fear is really coming from.
That's deep.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we're both going through for sure. Everything that we're striving for, we talk about it all the time. Are we really doing what we wanted to be doing? If we could do it another way, would we? We were having this conversation earlier. We've told ourselves, and I fully believe it, that we are living, these. We're going for our dreams, and it's not easy a lot of the time because we still obviously question everything. Should we be surrendering more to the new experiences? Should we be trying new things? But yeah, we have to even ask ourselves, what are we really afraid of?
And for me, what I'm curious is, how do you know when you're surrendering enough? Just because when we were talking earlier, you mentioned how you feel like I'm fully surrendering to everything.
Yeah.
And before we had that conversation, I was thinking the opposite. I'm fighting, I'm holding on to too much. And so it's so interesting. Where do you get these answers? Where do you find them?
I got a lot of questions, but no answers. Yeah, it's are we surrendering enough? Are we...
Maybe that's even the wrong mindset. Maybe that's I'm trying to measure it too much. Make sure I have optimal surrender.
Yeah, that's true. Are you surrendering to those thoughts in general? It's basically, it just comes down to realizing whatever you are doing, you're doing fine.
Yeah.
If what you're feeling inside is in some way basically just trying to find liberation of the soul. I don't want to be held to anything. I don't want to be held to society's standards. And it just kind of takes always checking in with yourself. And I think that's what we're doing. Are we still doing what we want to be doing? That's a great question to ask. Who am I really? Who am I? Ask yourself that deeply. And even when you just, the answers might not come, but when you just ask it, you'll start seeing signs of if your energy is aligning with the things that are being presented to you. And I think it does. Like we know it. We were talking about this earlier. You feel it in your body, like when your energy, when you're feeling full and excited and enthused, and when you're feeling drained. I think that's a good representation of what you should be doing. Like I have an idea that I'm doing the right thing because I wake up in the morning and I'm excited about the new day, and I'm like excited to start writing and doing the work and doing this and making videos, and just by trying to inspire people, I'm like inspiring myself to keep going, give it everything I have, and I like feel energetic throughout the day, and like doing these things makes me happy and provides meaning. So I think like, you know, when I definitely feel it when I'm not feeling in a good place, that I just get like nervous tics and just kind of feel bogged down and start twitching, start gyrating. No, it's you kind of just tap into which way your energy's flowing.
Yeah, I think that I totally agree with all of that. And a place I want to take this next is just going off of that energy, like feeling into your energy.
Mm-hmm.
In the Untethered Soul, Michael Singer gives such an incredible story to just show that all of your energy is generated from within you, and regardless of how much sleep you're getting, you know, your physical fitness, like those things play a big role, but we have this like untapped well of energy that we don't know where it comes from, and we can't really explain it. And so I love this example in the book. He has a whole chapter about this. And he tells this story of, so imagine you're back in high school and you're dating someone, you're in a relationship, and your significant other breaks up with you. And like you are just in the dumps. Like you're super sad, you're depressed, you're just sitting at home in your pajamas eating ice cream out of a half-gallon thing.
With a shovel.
Been
there.
Exactly. We've all been there. And like you're just feeling so sad. You have no energy, probably, you know, sleeping in till noon, 1. And then all of a sudden you get that text or you get that call from them and they say like, hey, I messed up. Like I want to get back together. And instantly you just go from super sad and no energy to just on top of the world, so excited.
Mm-hmm.
And where does that energy come from? Like literally in 1 second you can shift from being a slug to being Superman. And it's just so fascinating because if we could tap into that on command or just on a more consistent basis, like what would we be possible of?
Yeah, I think this plays in beautifully to like the quote I have. I'll just dive into it. You have a wellspring of beautiful energy inside of you. When you are open, you feel it. When you are closed, you don't. This flow of energy comes from the depths of your being. It's called by many names. In ancient Chinese medicine, it's called qi. In yoga, it's called shakti. In the West, it's called spirit. When you close, the energy stops flowing. When you open, all the energy rushes up inside of you. The only thing you have to do is know that opening allows energy in and closing blocks it out. Now you have to decide whether or not you want this energy. You stay open by never closing. Closing is a habit, and just like any habit, it can be broken. Defining what you need to stay open actually limits you. If you make lists of how the world must be for you to stay open, you've limited your openness to those conditions. How you learn to stay open is up to you. The ultimate trick is to not close. When your heart starts to close, just say, no, I'm not going to close. I'm going to relax. I'm going to let this situation take place and be there with it. Honor and respect the situation. Deal with it. By all means, deal with it. Do the best you can, but deal with it with openness, excitement, and enthusiasm. So basically, what he means by staying open is, you know, we all have, it's the energy that flows through our heart. And the heart is just this wellspring of boundless energy that it's what I feel when I travel. Like every day we could be out all day long and all night, and like I'm up at 5 a.m. again, just like ready to get out there. It's the same thing I feel like writing and just doing what you love. You know, that energy is just like, it's inspiring. But we all have that within us, and it's just waiting to be tapped into whenever we decide. And sometimes it feels like we need some sort of, me too, like talking about traveling, it feels like we need some exterior thing to make us come alive. But I use just like walking as an opportunity to just be like, take a look around, like look at this bee and this flower.
Look at it.
Look at it. And just like, I don't know, it's like the unfathomableness of the world just makes me like get energized. Like, I'm like, all right, this is like such insane things are happening right now. We have this like energy within us that's like just kind of let go, surrender to the moment, the experience, and the only thing you have to do is not close.
Just imagining you on a walk, just like tearing your shirt, just exposing your heart to the world.
Bees are just latching on my chest.
I'm so glad we took it here though, because this concept of just never closing your heart, always keeping it open, is so interesting and fascinating to me. Because if you think about it, if you close your heart, if someone hurts you or wrongs you and you end up closing your heart, you are only hurting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is your wellspring of energy, as he says in the book. Like, that is where you get your happiness from, your inspiration, your fulfillment.
Yep.
And if you're going to let someone else's actions cut you off from that, you're just hurting yourself. You're just punishing yourself for someone else's mistake or what they said to you, or it just doesn't make sense. But yet we do it all the time.
Yeah.
Especially if we've been hurt before and we say, you know, I'm never going to open my heart. I'm never going to give my heart to someone again.
For sure.
I'm just going to keep it locked down, trapped in a cage, and just live down here.
Exactly. It's like, it's limiting to live that way. It's, imagine the experiences, and he goes into this a lot, that once you have like one experience like that where you close your heart, you're going to live the rest of your life in fear of that thing happening again. You're going to devise every possible strategy you can to avoid that pain again. And he says it's like a thorn in your, imagine there's like a thorn in your arm, and the thorn is just, it's living in there. So you arrange your bed so when you toss and you're turning, it's not going to hurt as much. You arrange your house, your relationships, everything, so you're never going to feel the pain of that thorn. But instead of trying to make the world work in such a way that it won't affect the thorn, take out the thorn.
Yeah.
Open your heart and realize that you have the energy within you to make any situation into a positive, but just a learning experience, just something that you gotta just let it flow through you and back out. And it doesn't mean you can't, things happen. Like, life sucks a lot of the time, and it's not easy, but like, it doesn't mean you just have to be a wellspring of like positive energy at all times, but realizing that nothing outside of your control can make you feel any way. Like, you have the power to just be at peace through any situation and see the beauty in every situation. And I really like how he kind of just says, like, he makes it a game. Like, use the little thing. I actually have it here. Actually, here's the cover of the book. If you want to be as free as that horse, looking at for the people watching this at home.
Also, for the people watching or just listening, the mass paperback version that Vinny's talking about, if you flip to the back of it, Michael Singer has a picture, and probably the happiest looking man I've ever seen in my life.
He does look happy.
Whenever I recommend this book to people, I say, before you read it, go to the last page and look at his picture. Just look at him and tell me that you don't want to look like this guy.
So you can laugh at this, but
look at him.
I want I want that.
Yeah.
I want that.
I want all of that.
So it says, begin with the little things. For example, somebody says something to you that you don't like, or worse yet, doesn't acknowledge you at all. You're walking along and you see a friend. You say hello to them, but they just keep walking by. You don't know if they didn't hear you or if they actually ignored you. You aren't sure if they're mad or at you or what's going on. Your mind starts going a mile a minute. Good time for a reality check. There are billions of people on this planet, and one of them didn't say hello to you. Are you saying that you can't handle that? Is that reasonable? Use these little things that happen in daily life to free yourself. In the above example, simply choose not to get involved in the psyche. Does that mean that you stop your mind from going around in circles trying to figure out what's going on? No. simply means that you are ready, willing, and able to watch your mind create its little melodrama. Watch all of its noise about how hurt you are, how could anybody do that? Watch the mind try to figure out what to do about it. Just marvel at the fact that all of this is going on inside simply because somebody didn't say hello to you. It's truly unbelievable. Just watch the mind talk and keep relaxing and releasing. Fall behind the noise. So that's like, a big part of the book is we have these thoughts all day long, and we were talking about it earlier, just the incessant chatter in our brain that's like a bipolar roommate that just he's on both sides of the spectrum and won't give us a break. And that's what it feels like. But all we have to do is take a step back and realize we're not the one who's talking like that. We're not the voice inside our head. We're the one who simply observes it and realizes that nothing it says, either positive or negative, that's a big kind of check-in with yourself, is really you. Like, it's these things that's telling you, and it might, like, somebody gives you a compliment, will go the other way, and you're feeling on top of the world, and realize that that's not you either. That's something that's fed your ego, and somebody could have said the same thing in a negative way, and it would have shut you down. So, both sides of the spectrum, you gotta realize that you're the one who's noticing the voice talk, and by all means, we're no masters at this, but it's just something to think about.
We are just learning as everyone else is. And what I love is two things I love about what he says is, one, he says, you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions. You are the one who is watching your thoughts and emotions. Yep. You are the observer, he talks about a lot. And so the other part that I love is he doesn't talk about wrestle your mind to the ground, beat the little voice down so you don't hear it anymore. Mm-hmm. He's like, no, let that little voice, let your inner roommate just do its thing, do its melodrama, just go in circles over and over again and just watch and just, maybe laugh at it a little bit. Just be like, okay, you're doing your thing over there and you don't have to get involved. And then, what you were saying earlier is if we actually kept track of what the voice in our head was saying, we would never trust it. It's the most unreliable source. It tells you one thing over and over and over again saying, I'm positive this is right, this is right, this is right. And then you find out it's wrong. And then it's just not accountable. You're just poof, the voice is gone. I never said that. And then you move on to the next thing. Yeah,
it's senseless, really. It makes no sense. And so being able to really observe that and realize that's not you, it does turn life into a game. Everything we're focused on, all of our aims, our dreams, our fears, most of all, is just part of the game. When you take a step back and realize that you can be at peace no matter what happens in the world, that is true liberation of the soul, as he says.
I love that idea of it being a game. Just every little thing that happens to you throughout the day, you can get personally offended by. You can close your heart, close your energy, close your life. Or you can just surrender a little bit and think, how can I make the best of this situation? How can I challenge myself? How can I let a little bit of my ego go and just see what happens? And just constantly improve yourself, work on yourself, and just become a better version.
Exactly. And it honestly does make life fun that way. Everything can be enjoyable. We talk about a lot, just grocery shopping and just doing mundane things truly become beautiful when you're able to see life in this way.
I think to just kind of wrap things up and bring it all back is just going back to that quote I said in the beginning is everything will be okay as soon as you're okay with everything. Just surrender and each experience, see how you can use this in a positive way. It's going to keep your heart open. Just don't close that heart.
Don't close the heart. And actually, it makes me think of one of my favorite quotes that applies to writing, but it applies to really to everything. It's Marcus Aurelius, Stoic philosopher. It says, life is a fountain that flows from within. If you want it to flow, just let it.
Wow.
I think that's it. Anyways, it's something like that. And it's fun because, that one applies to me when it's I'm searching for inspiration to write something. But life is a fountain that flows from within you. If you want it to flow, just don't stop it. That's the same thing. The only thing you have to know about not closing or staying open is don't close.
Just don't close. Just don't close. Let it flow. Surrender to life.
That's right.
That's all you need to know.
It's going to be a lot more fun that way.
Thanks so much for tuning in. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time.
All right.